Hey, and welcome back to the number one podcast in the world, the Cellarcast, episode 135. I'm recording this on Monday morning because I got a little sick. On Saturday. You see, it was Kat's birthday. Well, Kat's birthday was on Friday. And so I went over to her place. We watched a couple movies. And then on Saturday, we went out with her friends because they were free. And we went, what else? Antique shopping. Oh boy. They're all antique shopping loving girlies. So we went up to this small little town in called Niles, which is just one of those. I like them. They're these just very old, just kind of old, tiny little American towns that I just find very cozy and pleasant. The tallest buildings are 2 stories. There are a couple streets and businesses and just big old hills, beautiful hills over there. Reminded me a bit of this place that in Illinois that my scout troop went. We went to a jamboree one time in this little town called Galena, Illinois, named after The Rock. And I'm pretty sure it was named after The Rock. And just this really neat little, like, kind of mid-colonial era architecture and real cool little places to walk around in, great vibe. So I like those small little towns. Kind of feels a little close to nature. I dig it. And I'm not the biggest antique dude. Kat bought so many plushes. She bought like 4 or 5 plushes. And like 3 of them were Stitch. But she had a good time, which is all that matters. And I actually found a couple things. One of them was a gift from my friend who is a history major, which I'm going to give to them. I'm not going to say it because I know they listen to this podcast sometimes. I'm not going to say what it is, but I was like, ooh, they're going to get a kick out of that. And the other one was when we stopped by this one that had a lot of, pop culture memorabilia and stuff. And Kat actually found it, a Street Fighter Alpha 2 Sakura action figure doll, whatever you want to call it. In the box I looked it up, from around 2000. And it was going for relatively cheap, I got it for about $55. And I'm not a big collector, and buying things doesn't usually make me happy. And this didn't really make me happy to buy, but I do look at it on my shelf and I'm like, that's a cool thing. That's cool, you know? I'm not even the biggest Sakura fan. You know what's crazy is we were in the car and the box was just on my lap or something, and it was on the middle seat, and the way it was positioned, I looked down and it was at this angle where I could just barely see up her skirt, and I was like, hang on. They fucked up. She's wearing white panties. Sakura this is such a stupid thing to fucking nerd out about. Sakura is known for wearing the red sports bloomers under her skirt. But that's like a very memorable, I feel like, kind of classic part of her animations is when she does her like heavy kicks and stuff, is her skirt flips up. Like, it's very well known that like that's what she wears, at least in that design. Anyway, yeah, it's kind of neat. You might see it in the background of some of my videos now. I just have it on my shelf. But I did get a little bit sick from being in, I don't know, proximity or something. You know, it wasn't like bad. It was like a 1-day sickness, and I slept most of the day yesterday. But I woke up and I was like, oh, my head hurts and my sinuses are all stuffy. You just kind of feel shitty, and I'm like, I just want to like eat and like drink something and then go to sleep again and just sleep this off. You know, like, hey, I know we're antique shopping, but those blankets might have been a little too vintage, if you know what I'm talking about. Honkies. A little too vintage. Yeah, but hey, good time. I'm feeling better now. And I want to get into... We actually have multiple questions. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? Our first question, we're going to get a comment review, comes to us from Ryan. Question for the Q&A. Did you pray today? Chilling with the boys in the tent sounds like fun in a less religious context. Very cringe you didn't join a cult for content. Mr. Beast would be disappointed in you. I don't think baptism is a cult. What's the thing? What's the difference between a cult and the difference between a cult and a religion is how much money they want from you. I don't know where Baptists lie on there. When my sister was 1 to 2, we had a DVD player in the car, and the only thing she watched was Frozen. Every car ride, she'd be watching the same movie. At one point in time, I was able to recite all the dialogue and sing every song. Woof. All right, yeah. You know what fucking sucks? Is that she's 2. She's not going to remember any of that. You're the one left with the scars. It's like an alcoholic who can't remember all the horrible things they've done to you, right? Because they were drunk. That's your sister. Your sister, your sister is abusive. No, I have not prayed today. I am not a prayer. I am not religious or particularly God-fearing. I don't know if I've ever prayed because it's never been a thing in my life. But no. Although I do have a background in like religion just because I went to Catholic schools my whole life. So I basically know praying. I just don't partake. Next question comes to us from Losey. It says, standing ovation for the impressions. Thank you. If you guys remember from last time, I did some wonderful, really bad impressions. I don't remember if you saw The Road to El Dorado. I recommended. There, you will delight your eyes. It is one of my first waifus, but I wasn't sexually awake at the time, and I couldn't appreciate her. Currently, the character has quite a resurgence with cosplayers. What's next after the Disney stuff? Any particular saga or brand of movies / series? Well, yeah. So first of all, I have seen Road to El Dorado a while ago, like when I was a kid, I think, on TV. And, Kat teases me about that character a lot. I know if we watch it, I'm going to be doing the same thing. We might rewatch it. That seems like something Kat would put on for me. I'm like a dog, and she just puts programming on for me. What's next after the Disney stuff? I don't know. I'm trying to get her to watch JoJo. We might at least just try to finish the first season and then see what she likes from there. But I don't know. It's really not up to me. Kat kind of controls my viewing habits because she's a controlling manipulator. And if I posted that how our relationship works to r/dating advice, I would be told that I need to break up with her because she's an abuser, and she makes me watch Disney movies. We watched 2 more Disney movies, by the way. I guess I have to talk about those. See, I feel like if I told her she was a Disney adult, she'd go, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not." And I walk in, and I literally walked into her house 2 weeks ago, and she was wearing her Stitch t-shirt, and she had 6 Stitch plushes arranged like in a little bouquet on the couch. But I don't know what we're going to be watching next yet. I'm not a big watcher, so I don't have as much opinion or sway in that. And then finally, we have Gus. Gus says, "Hey, T." Well, hello. This brings back the whole Digimon versus Pokemon debate, talking about Palworld, which I've got more to talk about this week because I played it. My take on this kind of plagiarism accusation is that ultimately the art itself is an evolution of what we've seen in the past. As someone who tries to create, I've been criticized for trying to copy elements present in the works of my favorite artists. We can talk about similarities between themes, styles, ideas. Those are valid points, but that's all they are. In my opinion, there's no harm in taking something as inspiration and turning it into something new and unique. Some may argue that it is theft, but no one can deny that the evolution of art has resulted from artists imitating other things done in the past, but also embracing new themes and trying to recreate something through a change in elements like perspective and aesthetics. In this case, it's difficult to locate where the boundaries between inspiration and plagiarism are. I think Nintendo will eventually end up looking into Palworld due to the similarities. They have the rights to protect their IP, but if this ever goes to court, it would create a complex legal battle, with valid points for both sides. But this begs the question, what about Digimon? Wouldn't the same rule apply in the case of Palworld? Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree with basically everything in this comment. The only thing is I don't even know, I think if Nintendo, if there was a serious plagiarism or a copyright infringement case to be had, I think they would have already made it. I mean, the game got announced like 3 years ago, right? They've known that this was a thing, and they probably have. They would have. I feel like we would have heard something, any kind of legal rumblings before even the release of Palworld, right? They probably would have been ready for that as soon as they saw more promotional material for the game or more designs and stuff, because they're that litigious, right? And there's also a good example where they sent a cease and desist to a modder who was modding, like, immediately, like within a couple days or something. There was already a mod to replace some of the PAL models with Pokemon, like Pikachu, the main character with Ash and all that. And they sent a cease and desist to the modder. So they do have their eyes on stuff like that. And I don't think... I mean, yeah. So as for the rest of your comment, or what about Digimon? I mean, yeah, that is already, like, you could easily call Digimon, if you just saw like the first. Digimon started as a TV show? I actually don't know. Was it a TV show or a game? I don't actually know a lot about Digimon. But if you just saw like whatever the first year or two of Digimon media output was, you'd go, "Oh, this is a Pokemon ripoff. This is a Pokemon whatever," you know. But Digimon is totally its own thing. And obviously, I don't know how similar it was at the beginning, but it eventually became something completely different. And as to the point about artists imitating things, you know, I talk about JoJo's Bizarre Adventure quite a bit on this podcast, I feel, at least recently. And you could easily call the first 3 parts of JoJo like a Fist of the North Star ripoff. In fact, Phantom Blood is like fairly overt with like, Fist of the North Star was really big at the time, so Araki was just kind of like, what if I did something like that? But even in like Phantom Blood, you can see a lot of unique things and a lot of the ways that he's putting his own spin on stuff. Like in Fist of the North Star, you're gonna have like Jack the Ripper as a vampire exploding out of a horse as just like a thing that kind of happens. It's like, no. There's clearly like a vision and an idea there, and even if it's kind of half formed and he's still working on figuring out what he wants to do, it's still there, right? And you can choose to focus on all the ways that it's similar in art style and stuff to existing things that are popular. But I think, you know, there's a seed there, and you have to give that some room to grow. You have to give that stuff some room to grow. Because, like, dude, like, everyone does that, dude. Like, everyone starts out imitating people that they like. And it's often, and most of the time, it's not even an intentional thing. I've had a lot of people tell me that, like, your videos really remind me of like a particular era of YouTube, like AVGN type stuff. And I'm like, wow, that's so weird, because I don't consciously do that. But I think about it, I'm like, wow, that's kind of like super foundational to my YouTube or like online video watching, you know? Like, I grew up watching those videos. I grew up watching AVGN and JonTron and like Brutal Moose and Kadikarus and like a lot of those channels, right? And Peanut Butter Gamer. I could go on and on and on and on about a ton of different channels like that. And it isn't like a conscious thing that I'm doing or that I was doing. Now I guess I'm slightly aware of it just because people will say it to me sometimes. But you know, it's just like that's how I learned. You know, how do I? Oh, there's totally a thing. Ooh, I got to find the words for it. When you grow up watching something or consuming something in a certain medium, that just becomes, oh, this is how this kind of works. This is how the pacing is. This is how the writing kind of is. This is how the editing is. These are the sorts of topics and the sort of approach that you take to it. And that just, it's like, you know, growing up with your parents. Your parents kind of tell you about, oh, okay, this kind of behavior is acceptable. And that's how you go about most of your life unless you like really examine the way that you behave, you know? Like a lot of interesting stuff with like, okay, you know, if one of the reasons that you don't, it's now considered a bad thing to like spank your kids, right? To discipline them, is that if that's your main form of discipline, the lesson that teaches them is that they, oh, well, when I don't want something, what am I supposed to do? I don't know. What did my parents do? They just fucking hit me. What do I do when I'm in a situation where I'm stressed out? What do I default to? Is, oh, you just have to fucking hit someone until they listen to you. And like that's the lesson that you impart on your kid, and that's not a very constructive way to go live in your life. I feel like I've used that example before, but like it's the same thing with art. You know, whatever forms your basis of understanding about something, that's just kind of how you do, and that's kind of going to end up being what you copy until you start really working on it and really thinking about what you're doing in your own style. Tons and tons of artists have started with something and then combined it with something else. And it's this whole Palworld thing is so weird because I feel like it's really, I've played the game. I bought it. And I'm like, why are people so weird about this game? Like, why this one in particular? I feel like it's really normal to see this kind of thing. Should I go into Palworld? I'll talk about Palworld a little bit. So you play Palworld, and it's basically, okay, here's the elevator pitch. And this is slightly simplifying things. The elevator pitch for Palworld is you take a survival game like Ark, and then you throw in a monster-catching Pokemon system or element set of mechanics, right? There's monsters out in the world. You can catch them. They're like pets. They can follow you around. They can fight with you. They can power your structures that you build. There'll be bosses and stuff. They'll have like item drops. You can ride them. It's very full, like pretty fleshed out as is at the moment. And that's like, yeah, I mean, there's also the RimWorld thing, which is sort of the middle part of that, which is where you take them and then you use them to assist you around your base and exploit them. That's the joke. It's you're exploiting the Pokemon for labor, and that kind of thing. It's not that crazy, like. I like the game. I'm having a lot of fun with it. How much time do I have? I was literally playing it earlier this morning. I have about 11 hours in it, and I beat the first boss. I'm up to like base level, I forget. I just got to the point where I can have 2 bases, which is neat. So I set up another one to basically just drop a bunch of pals to be an iron ore farm. And I don't know, I've been having a good time. It's this, okay. So there's something interesting here, I guess, about my tastes, which is that I'm not big into survival games. Like, I look at Ark, and Ark has never interested me. it just doesn't, and also, I don't really like Pokemon. I feel like I'm an on-the-record Pokemon hater at this point. That's been well established. I just do not really jive with the games, despite liking a lot of the world and the creature designs and all that. And I think that stuff is cool. I just find the games really just too simple. And just, it doesn't engage me very much. And I've talked about that before when talking about Shin Megami Tensei. Palworld combines two things that I'm not very interested in and makes something that I find pretty fun, which I think is kind of neat. It turns out that, like, hey, when you take this premise, which is like, okay, the whole deal with, like, the whole, like, loop with the survival gameplay is you go out, you get resources, and then you build more stuff, and then you get more resources, and then you build more stuff, and then maybe you, like, fight something that's strong, and then you get more resources to build more stuff, and it goes on and on and on, right? And that's, like, fun. That, like, might be fun for a little bit, but it turns out that when you add in this extra element of all these fun, like, kind of creatures to collect, and that there's, like, a whole management and base building aspect to it, and all these little interactions. Look, maybe it'll wear off after 20 or 30 hours, but honestly, that's good enough for me. It becomes engaging suddenly to me. I really like all of the PAL stuff in this game. I think it's a lot of fun. I think the mechanics are fun and the systems are cool. I like that. You can. There's a bunch of PALs that you can ride as mounts, and they have, like, different abilities when you're riding on them. And I like that the fire PALs, you can use them as like light sources at night and stuff. I think it's cool that there's items that are specific, that, like, add extra utility to the PALs. One of those being, like, the saddles, so you can ride the specific ones. You can there's like a fox. There's like a fire fox, right? And you can craft a harness for it, and that lets you use it as a flamethrower, which is like, oh, that's cool. That's creative. There's a penguin PAL, and you can craft a rocket launcher, and you load the penguin into the rocket launcher, and you shoot it out, and there's a big explosion that, like, I think instantly KOs the penguin every time in exchange for, like, a big blast of damage. Oh, that stuff's fun, you know? You can do the I don't know if you can. I wish there was something that lets you. The one thing that I wish it had, and maybe there is, but I haven't found it or I haven't unlocked it, is traversing water. Like, I think if there were more PALs that could just be like speed boats or something, like a boat that you could, a boat PAL, or that kind of functionality, like, swim in Pokemon. That would be neat. But yeah, I like it having these objectives and this clear kind of, like, okay, well, if I don't know what to do, or if I don't have a goal right now, because there's a lot of different, I guess, tracks or systems that you can improve or level up in. And there's always kind of like something that you can figure out to do, even if it's just like, okay, level up so I can unlock the next thing to craft and then do stuff with that. I like the base building stuff is fine. It's perfectly acceptable. I like the fact that all the PALs have different skills, and you have to pay attention to, okay, well, what kind of facilities do I have around the base? What kind of skills, what PALs with what skills do I need to get done what I need to do? Oh, I don't have any of that have like a mining skill. I'm going to open up another tab. I'm going to open up a tab and I'm going to look up what PALs have mining skills. And I'm going to go find one of them. And you get these goals that feel like, oh, I want to do that. I feel motivated. There's an internal motivation for me to do that so I can build like a better base and all that. Uh, are there things that I think I think the game, obviously, okay, so it's the launch version of a game, and it's in early access. It's literally the first thing that comes up when you boot it up. It says, hey, I don't think it says early access. It says like launch or launch early access, something along those lines. So there's going to be a lot more content added down the road. Basically guaranteed at this point because it's done so well. I think it's pretty solid as is, and I'm interested to see what more they would add. I'm assuming like another island, because there's essentially one map with a certain layout, and that's just the layout. That's just the map. My neck. So maybe just more of those different. I could see a bunch of systems and all that. So one of the neat things is that the pals don't have evolutions. There are like larger forms of certain pals. There's like the little Firefox, and then there's like the bigger one, and I think there's like maybe 2 forms for a lot of them. But they don't like evolve. There's no evolution track for any of the pals. It's just, this is the larger like adult version or like second phase of that pal, which generally has better stats and higher level skills so that they're more efficient at your base and all that. But one thing that means is that the small versions never really stop being. They don't get power crept as much. They always kind of have a use, especially if they have a PAL specific upgrade, which it seems like a lot of them do. Like a lot of them have either like, okay, here's a way that you could turn it into a weapon. They'll have like the small versions of PALs have things along those lines. You can turn the Firefox into a flamethrower. You can give the little grass monkey a machine gun. you can kind of there's upgrades, I guess, to let them sort of keep up with their more adult versions, which is neat. The other thing I like about it is that the joke of the game is, okay, let's take Pokemon and let's imagine how would Pokemon realistically play out in a world with like exploitative capitalism? How would it play out if you're like, okay, there's all these monsters with powers, and they are stronger than human beings, but not as smart. I'm going to capture them and have them work labor for me. So it has like these and there's like, I haven't gotten to this point, but apparently if you go hunting for like a rare pal to capture or kill, the game will just tell you like you're engaging in illegal activity because, oh shit, that's actually poaching. Which is this little like, it doesn't have any gameplay effect, but just the acknowledgement of, you know, they're not going to stop you, but just the acknowledgement of, oh, hey, you know, like when you go hunt for a rare Pokemon or a shiny or something, yeah, that's like equivalent to poaching. Or the fact that you can capture human NPCs in the Pokeballs, the PAL spheres is what they're called. You can capture humans, and you get a pop-up that says, capturing humans is like illegal in Palworld and ethically frowned upon. We won't stop you, but you should know that like you're doing something that's considered fucked up in Palworld. And it's just this little, hey, you know, in Pokemon they have these Pokeballs that can capture the monsters, right? Well, could you throw a Pokeball at a human being and capture them? And in Palworld, yes, you can, and there are laws about that. And that kind of thing is, and you can just use that, like you can literally, capture a merchant And now he's just like on your team and can fight with you, and you're kind of forcing him to do it against his will. That kind of thing is I find that funny, and like, okay, there's an idea here. It isn't just like, let's just throw some assets together and call it a day. Like, no, there's like an idea. There's a premise. And it's doing things with it. But it never gets it never like crosses the line from what I can see. There's no point where it crosses into like being kind of like, okay, this is too much, you know? There's no gore. There's technically visually there's no death. You do get like drops, and you can collect like, you know, the pal's meat and stuff after you kill them, but the actual animation is just them going boo and just kind of ragdolling, and they have like swirly eyes, like they're KO'd. You know, it isn't like they're fucking dead. Whoa, it's like Pokemon, but you kill them, and there's blood and gore, and isn't this so edgy? Like, it's not like, you know, it's not like that 13-year-old experimenting with dark themes kind of subversive. It's still cute and happy and fun, and you don't have to do anything mean to the pals. I mean, besides like beating them up so you can capture them, which I felt really bad about at first, and I still kind of feel bad about them, because you start beating them up and they're like, please, and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Please, just get in the ball. And then they get in the ball, and then you like, you know, you summon them back out, and they're like, yeah, I'm just a happy little critter. And I'm like, okay, no, he likes it. He's okay now. Yeah, the game has, I don't know, there's the fast traveling around. I feel like I've explored so much of the game, but I keep finding new stuff, which is neat. Like, oh shit, I've never even been to this whole big island on the side over here, and there's all this stuff, and there's mini bosses around the world, which are like big, either like unique pals that are boss specific, or just like sized up versions of existing pals. So there's like there's quite a bit of stuff to do and find and level up, and I don't know, man, like I like it. I like the systems and the mechanics, and it's a fun time. I'm trying to think of other examples of games that have done this sort of blending of genres or concepts. There's definitely like a bunch of them. It's just not coming to mind. Yeah, I don't know why this was the game that everyone got so weird about. Is it just the Nintendo factor? Is it just like the Nintendo swaying out factor? Like, it got really weird to the point where people were like, ripping the models from Pokemon and Palworld, and they took like the Luxray stand-in, right? The like wolf type Pokemon, and they like were comparing the meshes, and it's like, what? Does it matter that much to you? Like, how anal are you getting? And it's like, yeah, like, wouldn't, like, of course, like, wouldn't the meshes be kind of similar because they're similarly shaped? Like, they're similar looking models because it's literally like a parody of Pokemon. And you say that, and then there's a comment that replies, and it's like, oh, so you're telling me they just made a mesh? You're telling me that they just made a design, a model that was similar to Luxray, and then they just didn't change, they didn't make it their own thing? And it's like, yeah, that's the joke. Like, that's part of it has to look like Pokemon because that's what it's directly parodying. That's the satire. They're taking Pokemon and they're pushing concepts to an extreme for comedy's sake. That's the concept. Like, what is... I don't think it's the end of the world, man. Yeah, so I'm enjoying Palworld. I think it's a good time. It's cool. I like exploring. I like riding around on my pals. Dude, this is just okay. I'm gonna warning, hater alert. I feel like Pokemon is the worst one at being Pokemon. I feel like every other thing that I've experienced, and I know there's a lot of Pokemon inspired games or games that have kind of similar ideas, and of the ones that I've played, I feel like Pokemon is every other one of them has been way more interesting than Pokemon. And when I say of the ones I've played, I mean Shin Megami Tensei 4 and Palworld. So my opinion doesn't matter. It's just interesting to me that of the two games that I can draw parallels to, one of which people are just calling like a rip-off plagiarism. I'm like, wow, this is just way cooler. Like, I love the integration of all the PAL's unique abilities. Compared, like, Pokemon feels so simple. It feels so simple, and it just has, like, when you use a Pokemon's unique ability, it's usually just to cross a roadblock. I feel like a lot of times I played Diamond and I played Emerald, and I didn't like either of them. I feel like every time you're going to use a Pokemon's ability to solve a problem. But it's just like, this is a roadblock. You have to cut the tree down. You have to find a Pokemon and teach it cut. And then you got to use it on the tree to cut it down. And that's it. It could have been, the challenge might as well have been find the key card to open the door kind of thing. It just always felt very, very simple, and like there were no, like, it was barely a mechanic. Like, there were no systems for these mechanics to live in that weren't just the battling, right? They just kind of had so these little like HM uses almost felt like just tiny little add-ons to these mechanics. Like, oh, you got to use Surf. We're gonna put water here. You gotta use Surf to go over it. But in Palworld, it's like, okay, well, I have this flying type thing. I want to get up to that mountain. I'm gonna craft the the saddle for this, and then I'm gonna use it to fly up to the mountain. It's dark out. But there's a bunch of like dark type Pokemon because they're nocturnal. The dark type Pokemon are nocturnal, and they'll be awake. And they're usually hostile at night. So I want to have I can hold out a torch to light my way, but then I won't be able to use my my spear or my real weapons. So what I'll do is I'll hold my spear, and then I'll just have my like a little fire type Pokemon to be a light source for me. Like, that stuff, those like little things mean a lot to me as a player, where I feel like I'm really working alongside my pals. I'm using their abilities in kind of creative ways that the game isn't just directly setting up for me. Like, it isn't just like, okay, here's just the HM check, you know? I like the feeling. I don't know how complex the AI is. The pathing at your base is very simple. It's very simple. And sometimes you do have to help the pals out, and they don't really do what you want them to do. So you got to like literally fling them at like a station to get them to work at it. But there's just like little touches with the ways that the pals react when you have like the one that you have summoned out. It'll kind of like, when you look in a direction, it'll look in that direction and start moving there, and you'll start walking. If you jump, they'll jump with you. You start attacking something, they'll attack with you and go into like their whole combat routine. And it's like little, but just the fact that they kind of look and follow your direction, and they aren't just these sort of just like orbiters, you know, like these moons orbiting your character, feels like, oh, I'm on the hunt with my monster companion. It's cool. It's just like a cool little feeling that I feel like, from what I can tell, even looking like, you know, Pokemon doesn't really change that much. I look at the trailer for the new Pokemon, it's like, they're not doing that shit. I mean, what did it take them, like 20 years to add a rideable Pokemon? What? yeah, like all that stuff is cool. I love the way that the pals are integrated into those systems. Like that's the thing is that you can cry plagiarism, or you can cry like, oh, they're copying this or copying that. Oh, it has the UI from Breath of the Wild. It has the big tower from I forget what game. It's got all these elements that you could be like, that other game did something like that. But like putting all of these things together, like, okay, I take a little issue with people saying that they're like creatively lazy. Like, okay, maybe it's not the most original thing in the world, right? But being able to take these different concepts and these different systems and integrate them together into a game, and it feels as good as I think Palworld does, is really impressive. Like, they worked hard to make that stuff function. If all of these systems were just totally like clearly just hacked together and they didn't gel at all, and they felt very disconnected from each other, and it's like, oh, then it would be okay, they're just ripping off a bunch of stuff, and it would be low effort. It would be clearly low effort, but it's not. There was effort put into it to make what I think is a pretty satisfying game. There are some issues. There's a couple issues. Number one, it is a little bit, I think the dungeons are a little bit bare bones. I was talking to someone else the other day who was also playing Palworld, and he brought this up, and I was like, yeah, I can see that. I've done a couple dungeons at this point, and yeah, they're a little flat. It's just kind of like, hey, here there's like a sequence of rooms, and there's a couple branching paths, and then at the end there's a big version of a pal with some little versions of it. I think it would be neat to add, I don't know, just flesh them out. I think it'd be cool to like add some puzzles, maybe more unique bosses, some kind of I feel like just an easy thing would be, hey, what if there's a type of collectible or thing that you only get by beating the dungeon? Oh, there's these crystals, there's these crystals, and you can use the crystals as part of some sort of long-term progression system thing. Or they let you craft some kind of special item that's really powerful or something like that, and you can only get them by clearing a dungeon. Just something like that, I'm just making stuff up off the top of my head. Just something to give them a little bit more purpose and a little more motivation to go do them and flesh them out a little bit more. Would be neat. The game also, mind you, it's early access, and despite being pretty stable, I have run into a couple bugs, namely with pals clipping or getting into weird spots. Excuse me. It's only happened like twice, but I had one pal who at my base, they were both at my base, and it had fallen under. Okay, so I just start getting, because all the pals have a hunger meter, and as long as you have like a feed box on your base, whenever they're hungry, they'll just go to the feed box and as long as it's kept stocked up, and they'll kind of just do it automatically. They'll just keep the box stocked. They'll just go eat, right? And it kind of takes care of itself, so you don't have to think about it once you've got the feed box. But I noticed, like, okay, I'm getting these notifications. They're like, hey, Fox Sparks, which is one of the Firefoxes. Fox Sparks hasn't eaten in a while. And I look at the hunger bar, and I'm like, where's Fox Sparks? Yeah, okay, let me do something else, It's not a big deal. I'm sure they'll eat something later. And then I notice it keeps getting, every time I go back to my base, it's lower and lower and lower until it's in like the 20 to 30% hunger range. And I'm like, okay, why is it not eating? And I'm looking around trying to find it. I'm like, where is it? Until I spot a health bar underneath the ground. And somehow this Fox Sparks had clipped underneath the world geometry and was just stuck and couldn't do anything. And that's why it was slowly just starving. Now, luckily, The fix for that was just to go back to the little beacon you've got set up, which kind of defines where your base is. And that's where you do a couple other things from there. You do your fast travel, and then you've got your whole like PAL box that has this. It's like your PAL storage, and you also define which PALs are actively working at the base. And then I just take the Fox Sparks off of the list, which despawns them, and then I just drop them back onto the list, and then they just spawn in midair in front of me and drop down, and then it's fine, and then it can go eat. So the fix is simple, thankfully, and it's not like, well, I'm just kind of screwed on that. Also had another kind of odd instance where a pal was walking. It was like trying to transport something, and it somehow ended up all the way on top of my house, like on the roof that I'd built, and it just could not find a way back down. So the fix was the exact same thing. It was just weird. I don't even know how you got up there. It'd be some weird calculation of what its height was supposed to be when it was like it walked into my house. I have no clue. Yeah, but I'm having a good time with it. The character creator is very bare bones, but it exists, you know. It's not the most important thing in the world to me. Yeah. Even in its current state, I've been having a lot of fun with it, if that sounds interesting to you. And even if, you know, other survival games haven't really, taken your fancy, kind of like me, I don't know, maybe look into it. The PAL thing might just be interesting enough for you. It's been interesting enough for me. I like it. Yeah, that's it for Palworld. I like it. Quick little news story. So there's that new Dragon Ball game, Sparking, that's coming out, and they've said it's like a direct sequel to the Budokai Tenkaichi series. It's just, with a new subtitle, but it is directly like in that vein. And they have officially announced, the first 24 characters of Dragonball Sparking Zero. All right, the first 24 characters. You guys want to hear them? They are Goku, Vegeta. That's it. It's 11 Gokus and 13 Vegetas. I am not shitting you. It's 11 fucking Gokus. And it's probably not even all of them. They didn't even cover all of the forms. Goku Z early, Goku Z mid, Goku Z mid Super Saiyan, Goku Z end, Goku Z end Super Saiyan, Goku Z end Super Saiyan 2, Goku Z end Super Saiyan 3, Goku Super, Goku Z mid Super Saiyan. Wait, I think that's supposed to be something else. Goku Super, Super Saiyan God, Goku Super, like, what the fuck? There's 13 Vegetas! They got this great ape form. That is hilarious. That is like the funniest. I was looking at I'm like, these are all just, it's just 2 characters. Dude, French bread could never squeeze that many. Dude, you know that they were looking, when they were developing Melty Blood, and they were back in the 2000s, and they were like, how the fuck do we get more characters out of this story that has like 5 people in it? You know, they were looking at Dragon Ball and they were like, fuck, I wish I could make like 20 Gokus. I just found that humorous. I never played the Budokai, the bodacious Tenkichi, bodacious Tenkimchi games. That's what it is, yeah. But I know people have a lot of fondness for them, and they love the sheer size of the roster. So I get that. It's kind of fun to just have a big, huge roster that covers absolutely everyone you could ever imagine. That stuff's neat. Good on you, Dragon Ball fans. Oh, Dragon. Oh, they were really suffering for video games. Yeah. Hey, next thing. So, Tekken 8 came out. And the thing about Tekken 8 is that it apparently is really good. Hang on one second. I gotta go do something. The thing is done. Sorry, I got distracted by that. I had to close my windows. Yeah, so I am not a Tekken guy. Okay, so here's the thing. I played the demo for Tekken 8. I think I might have mentioned this before when talking about wanting to upgrade my PC parts. Now, the demo for Tekken 8 just included like the first chapter, I want to say, of the story mode. Excuse me. And so they're doing some things in that story mode where there are some really clean, seamless transitions between cutscene and gameplay. So much so that you like don't even notice it sometimes. It's so just like, oh, now we're in gameplay. You can only just kind of, you have to be looking for it, right? It gets a little more obvious after a while. Well, for me, it was really obvious instantly, because as soon as it would shift to the gameplay, the character models would suddenly drop dramatically in quality. And then after I upgraded my graphics card and my RAM and all that, I checked, that was my check, was the Tekken 8 demo, and I could run it at like high or ultra settings, I'm not sure. I could run it at like high enough settings that, okay, it looks good now. And it runs pretty smoothly. So that was cool. I watched the story mode. And it's kind of fun, like, I know we all like to make fun of people who say like, oh, that was so cool, I watched a let's play of it on YouTube, but like, dude, that fucking story mode was so cool. It makes me want to play it really bad now. That was a really fun cinematic story mode. I guess this is kind of spoilers. If you really care about the story mode for Tekken 8, I guess just click to the next segment. But God, I just kind of want to talk about it, because I have been following like the Tekken storyline for a bit, because I think it's fun. Tekken has, it's a series of peaks and valleys, but wow, I think the one for 8 really nailed it. It's like 4 hours long, just about 4 hours long. It is really focused on just this, finishing this story, and it's the Mishima, it was the last confrontation, the Mishima bloodline, and there's like a little sequel hook, which is like, okay, yeah, fine, whatever. But we're finally ending this 30-year fucking story of how all of the men in the Mishima family suck ass. This game is like it's a 4-hour apology letter. People are calling it a love letter. No, it's an apology letter to fans of Jin Kazama. Because holy shit, they put in some work to fix that character. So if anyone's unfamiliar, Jin gets introduced in Tekken 3 as the new protagonist. Tekken has a real interesting history with its protagonist. First game was Kazuya fighting Heihachi. Heihachi's the villain. He threw him off a cliff when he was a little boy. Oh my god, he's so bad. And then in the second game, Kazuya, now the head of the Mishima Zaibatsu, is like, actually, I'm super evil. And now Heihachi is the protagonist, and he's got to beat Kazuya. He's got to beat his son. Tekken 3, we get a time skip. Oh, now it's Jin, Kazuya's son. And Jin is like the coolest dude ever, and everyone loves Jin. And then in Tekken 4, he gets a completely new moveset, and they just scrap his old one. And everyone's like, what the fuck? I don't like that. I really like Jin, how he played. Tekken 5, they kind of made a bit of amends to it with making the old moveset a separate character. It's Devil Jin, which kind of represents Jin. The whole reason his moveset changed was because, he rejects the Mishima style. He's going to forge his own style, inspired by, like, his mom and stuff. So he switches up his moveset, and the original Mishima style is used by Devil Jin, like his darker version, I guess, that he can't control. But it's like, okay, you know, all right, it's a bit of a concession, but I think people have learned to live with it by now. Okay, this is how Jin's going to be, and this is how they're going to handle his moveset. And then in Tekken 6, they take Jin, and they're like, hey, you know, like the noble, pure-hearted protagonist of our series, who has taken steps to reject the evil of his family, he's going to start World War III. He's going to become Adolf Hitler. Why? Just kind of like stupid shit. The plot of Tekken 6 is that there's this big giant crystal dragon named Azazel or whatever, and Azazel is gonna wake up one day and destroy the world. But Azazel will only wake up in response to human suffering. So normally you'd be like, okay, so this is the point where Jin decides to train his successor. You know, he's going to start the tradition that he's going to, generations of warriors who are eventually one day training to fight Azazel and save the world, right? That's what you'd imagine he would do. No, he's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start World War III to like accelerate human suffering until Azazel wakes up prematurely, and then I'm going to kill him. And also it's going to destroy the devil gene or something. It's really like, dude, what? Yeah, that story is dude, why? Why? And then he does, like, nothing in Tekken 7. That's all Kazuya versus Heihachi. Like, I think they were like, we don't know what to do with Jin now. We kind of fucked up. And apparently there was some disagreement between Harada and the team over what Jin's direction should be. I know one of them, I believe one of them wanted him to be a villain and the other didn't. And one of them won out in the end. So now Jin, they're like, all right, we have to like rehabilitate this character. We have to like make him a good guy again. And it's hard and it's weird, but I think by the end of the story mode, they put in enough effort to at least say, hey, you gave it a really A for effort, dude. And it might work for you. I don't know if it works for me, but I at least appreciate it. There's a lot of very likable things about this story mode. Tekken is, I feel, really at its best when it hits. There's this whole, it's like, you know, the uncanny valley where there's this whole area. There's this whole area on the chart where you're rising up and it's weird until you hit like the point where it becomes totally like indistinguishable from a human being, you know? Tekken is at its best when it's like that, when it's like it's like that, but for being stupid. There's a point where there's a long point where you're in like the schlock zone and you got to rise up and up and up. And once you hit the peak, you transform from schlock into sick as hell. The best Fast and the Furious movies do this. Fast 5 does this. Fast 9 fails to do this. The story mode in this game, I think, hits that pretty consistently. It hits the sick as hell point pretty consistently. And that's a real strength of it, where like the stupidest shit is going on. There's a fucking bear in a war zone with like a headband and it's doing karate. And like this dumb, stupid anime bullshit is happening. But it's playing it, it's going so extreme and it's playing it so straight. And I think in ways it's leaning into it just enough that I'm like unironically enjoying myself. When you get the QTE, press X to believe in myself, I'm like, this fucking rules. That's awesome. The language of video games. Like, that's what that is. This is what QTEs were made for. What was I thinking? I think it's really interesting the way that different fighting game series have approached telling their stories. Because it's not a genre that lends itself to telling a narrative in a very obvious way. And there isn't really a standard. When you really look at it, you might think there is, but you look at the broad spectrum of the genre, and there's a lot of variety in the way that they handle it. So originally, you just kind of had like arcade endings, like, you know, in Street Fighter 2, you just had character-specific arcade endings. And then there was one that would be considered like the canon ending, maybe. Then you look at stuff like, you know, only a couple years later with like King of Fighters. And in King of Fighters, you know, the idea is that every game is literally taking place as a tournament, an in-universe tournament with canonical teams that enter. So if you just kind of mix and match your characters on your team, you'll get sort of a generic ending. Or you can, if you take one of the canon teams through the arcade mode, you'll get their specific ending of what happens at the end of their storyline. And some parts of that may or may not be canon. But then you take usually I think the hero team, and their ending will be the canonical one for you know, who actually wins the tournament. The good guys always win the tournament. And that'll usually get you like the true final cutscenes and all that. And here's the actual plot developments that are important. So that's like how KOF handles it. Guilty Gear had, you know, way back in the X and the XX days, had sort of both. Or not both, but it had like a mix of, there were character-specific arcade endings. They're actually, I think, maybe one of the first ones to do like a combination of arcade endings for each character, and then a specific storyline, like a story mode that was its own thing, and that had, you know, its own cutscenes, and like, okay, this is the main story for this game, and all the character arcade modes are kind of like side stories to what's happening. Later on, Guilty Gear would just say, fuck it to the gameplay, and just become a visual novel, and then like a 5-hour anime, you know. So they just gave up, which I can respect. Mortal Kombat was one of the first series to do an adventure mode. They did that in Deception, which, you know, it's kind of funny because that's a huge leap, because before then it's like the games, they had like the individual arcade endings, and then that was basically it for like 5 games. And then Deception comes out and it's like, boom, huge step up into this whole adventure mode with this like ongoing story and environments to run around in, and you learn new moves and all that. And then they never did that again. They never did that again because I don't know, was it too expensive? I don't know. What else was going on around that time? I don't know what Soul Calibur had. I want to say they had like a story mode and then arcade endings as well. Tekken had the weird Tekken Force mode, and yeah, they had like a unique story mode. That's kind of like what a lot of them settled on, was story mode and then character arcade endings. And then interestingly, after Street Fighter 4, or after MK9, there was this kind of pressure, I feel like, to sort of emulate the NRS style, which then led to, which is just like cutscene fight, cutscene fight, cutscene fight, where they're basically just movies with little gameplay segments sprinkled in. And then you get that in the Street Fighter V story mode, where it almost, I don't know. I've come to realize I'm not a huge fan of it. And I think in the modern day, when there's been a lot of, because we have three, I think what's interesting is we've got 3 major fighting game series that have come out within the last couple years, and every single one of them has taken a radically different approach, or a very different approach at the very least, to how they handle their stories. You had Guilty Gear Strive first, which is just like, it's a movie, 5-hour anime. Then you had Street Fighter 6, which was the way we're doing our story. They have the unique arcade endings, but the main plot is this whole like adventure world tour mode, very similar to, Deception's Conquest mode, where we're going to kind of we're telling the story through this other like RPG Yakuza style mode that's like got a fighting game integrated into it. Then you had MK1, which is the very kind of standard at this point NRS style cutscene gameplay. And I think people are getting a little tired of that. I think they're getting a little bit tired of it. With MK, I think, or NRS in general, I think that their strategy is to just lean in full force on the cutscenes. Is that they're like, this is a cutscene game. They look great. They've got snappy, clever Marvel movie dialogue. They're engaging stories until the halfway point where they become schlock. And then Tekken 8 almost feels like it's doing the absolute most with that formula. I think it does it better than MK. Because with Tekken 8, there's a lot of, it is a cutscene gameplay type story mode, but there's a pretty decent effort to spice it up and to add in, to make it feel like the cutscenes are actually like they lead directly into the gameplay. So there's a couple points throughout the story mode where, for instance, it's a very Jin-centered story. And then most of the fights are with him. There are, like, you do get to play a variety of characters, but it is mostly you're going to be playing Jin, I feel like. It's very heavy on him. And there's points where, for instance, he goes through his different forms. Like in that, even in just that opening battle, I'm pretty sure he goes through like the regular form and then Devil Jin. He loses parts of his moveset at points. And then after a fight, or like in between phases of a fight, he'll gain those moves back or something. There's points where he gets, new forms. There's a really sick fucking moment in the final fight, which is like 7 phases long, where Jin goes through like 5 different movesets. And they're like references to previous games and his old Tekken 3 moveset and Jun's moves. And then he gets all of them. And it's fucking super sick if you know what all those are. Like his stance changes, really, really making the most out of the fact that they can just port over skeletal animations for a lot of this stuff. Like they made the most out of that. They got a lot of work out of those old Tekken 3 animations. And that stuff is really cool. That's like, oh, we're blending the gameplay and the story. Jin isn't just embracing his past. He's literally taking on a past moveset that you're now going to use for a phase of the battle. That shit's really cool. The little QTE segments that are they show up a couple times, but they're just like brief enough that it's like, okay, here's just a little something to do to kind of keep you active during this scripted moment. There's cool things like during the part of the story that's a tournament, there's a decent chunk of the story, like about a third, I want to say, that's focused on the King of Iron Fist tournament that's actually going on. And you get to choose which character you want to play for each round. And it doesn't have any story implications, but it's cool, you know. It's cool that there isn't like a mandate. And you just kind of get... You're getting to choose your character, giving you a little bit of agency in how the tournament bracket goes. Even if it doesn't really mean anything, it's neat. It would be cool to see something like that further fleshed out. Although it would probably be a lot of work. Lots of little points where, you know, characters have an exchange before the fight, like an exchange of blows, and that is reflected in the starting health bars, or the state that they're in, or where they're at on the screen when the fight begins. That stuff's cool. It's like, okay, this feels like it's not super disconnected. It's got a very organic flow to it. There's a lot of unique enemies. There's like some unique bosses that are not playable characters. They're just, this is made specifically for the story mode, which is always cool, like an extra bit of effort. There's that whole cool part where it's just like, hey, here's like a 20-minute Tekken Force. And it's pretty short. You play a couple characters. It's broken up with regular fights. But it's like, hey, yeah, remember Tekken Force? Here's like a little nod to that. Here's like a 3D brawler. Kind of makes me want to see a like Tekken Dynasty Warriors type game. I think that would be cool. It starts to make you... I really started to think about this. Questioning the logic of Tekken is, you know, it's a fool's endeavor. But like, guns exist in this world? There are soldiers on this huge battlefield with guns. They just don't... It just seems like they only have like 12 guns on hand that they pass out. Okay, who wants it this time? Most of the soldiers just fight using hand-to-hand combat. Because we live in fight world, where... You know, the day is saved not by tactical military operations, it's saved by a group of colorfully dressed main roster characters doing a bunch of punches and kicks. And it's stupid, but it's fun, you know? There's a moment where there's a couple good pops for characters, like King, who hasn't gotten to do a whole lot story-wise, where he's doing his, you know... You play the King section, and the guys on the comms, like the fellow soldiers, like rebel soldiers, are chanting, like, King, 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 King. Like, hyping you up. That's fun. A lot of, I feel like, pretty tasteful fan service. Like, okay, this makes sense, or this is a fun nod, or this doesn't last too long kind of things. And I feel like just, you know, in general... It's taking that structure and it's really doing a lot with it to take you on a real roller coaster. Like, the cutscenes are beautiful and they look really good. There's some good camera work. The voice acting is, well, I mean, a lot of it I can't really tell because it's in 13 different languages. But it's all still, you know, pretty good, even if the dialogue is stupid Tekken shit. But it's like lovable, stupid Tekken shit. Jin gets a Saint Seiya form, which is fun. And I saw that for the first time and I was like, is this too much? Is that a little too goofy? And then I thought about it and I'm like, I looked at like true Devil Kazuya standing opposite him and I'm like, nah, let him have it. Just like overall a really cool story mode. I think it's probably the best implementation of that style and structure of a story mode for a fighting game that I've seen. It's always tough with a fighting game because you typically have so many characters, and oftentimes one of the appealing things about fighting game rosters is that all of the characters have their different motives and they have different things that they want, and you like following those over the course of multiple games. But it creates a tricky situation if you want to tell a more centralized narrative, because everyone could be their own main character if you really wanted them to be. They work very differently from most narratives, how most narratives are set up. Like, you watch a TV show and yeah, there's side plots and there can be a lot of characters with their own little plot lines, but ultimately there's characters who are just on the side and they don't really do anything, or they're there for a bit, or they're there to serve a function. But in a fighting game, it's like, no, they need to have like a goal and a motivation and something that they're doing, even if it's very minor and off on the side and doesn't contribute much or doesn't connect much to other characters' stories. They still got to have something, which is neat. But it's a challenge, and it's kind of it's interesting to track how various developers have approached that challenge over the years. Yeah, like what the fuck do you do with this bear? But Kuma has a story. That kind of thing. So yeah, man, I don't have the moolah for Tekken 8 right now. But I am, it looks fun. I would like to learn a bit of Tekken. I played the demo and I realized, man, I do not know shit about Tekken or how it plays. I know some concepts, I know some basic terminology and stuff like that. But in terms of actually I can follow Tekken as a spectator and basically know, a lot of stuff transfers, like, okay, the importance of, frame data, hitboxes. I understand the concepts of sidestepping and all that. I know that Tekken is generally set up with, unlike 2D fighters, which are more designed around kind of quick combo starting lows and overheads being, most moves are mids. Lows are like kind of a mix up to, lows are kind of like fast moves that can start combos. Overheads generally, like, depending on the game, may or may not give you a combo sort of thing, but they're mainly for mix-ups. And typically, you have less overheads than you have lows and mids kind of thing. So they're kind of sparse in your arsenal, or your sparsenal. Tekken is more designed, I know, around slower, more reactable lows, or lows that don't typically lead to, like, big combos. And most moves are like mids or highs that you can duck and stuff like that. Like, I understand those concepts, but actually putting it into practice and getting in the field with it is a very different thing. And I do not have that muscle memory built up. Like, I was like, ooh, I am getting clipped, especially with Kazuya, who I as I understand is a pretty like mix-up heavy character. Oh my god, I just got clipped during that demo. I got clipped so many times by little lows and hell sweeps and stuff like that. But I would like to learn. I would like to learn a Tekken game. I think it would be a fun experience. I like learning new genres, and I've never really delved that much into a 3D fighter in the Tekken style. Like, never really played that much. Like Soul Calibur or Virtua Fighter or that kind of thing. So hey, if it goes on sale, maybe I'll pick it up. Or if I happen to come into a decent chunk of money sometime soon. Yeah, so that was Tate. It was Andrew Tekken 8. Andrew Tate. We watched some movies. I don't know how much I really have to say about them. We watched the Aristocats because she was like, oh, Tigan really liked The Rescuers. I'll put on another one that came out during the 70s, the Aristocats. The Aristocats is fine. It's decent, I feel like a kid would probably get a little more enjoyment out of the Aristocats. It's actually a pretty stark contrast to the Rescuers. The Rescuers had a very constant feeling of danger, and like the characters were just always at threat of being crushed or killed or something. The Aristocats, by contrast, is a very low stakes movie. Like, I was never really worried for them that much. There's like a bit of, oh boy, like the climax, the most dangerous thing that happens in the Aristocats is like a walk in the park for the Rescuers. They would solo them easy, We're gonna power scale Disney characters. The rescuer's Solo. Miss Bianca solos Toulouse the cat. Easy. No prep time needed. The Aristocats is about some cats who, it's this lady cat, Duchess, and her 3 kittens, and they belong to this nice old lady in Paris, France. And old lady's gonna give her fortune to her cats, which I don't know if that's legal. And her butler is like, but I want it for myself, so I'm gonna fucking kill these cats. So he kidnaps them or catnaps them and dumps them off in like the marshes outside Paris. Or not the marshes, but the countryside. And then they're like, they gotta get back home, and they do so with the help of a jazzy alley cat named some O'Malley the alley cat. That's his rhymes. He's got a little song about it. And I was sort of waiting for a point where he was gonna maybe like betray them or be like reveal himself to be kind of more villainous. No, he never does that. Like, he's just a cool cat. Very little in the way of bad things really happen to the main characters. Like, it's a very low stakes film. There's a 10-minute sequence of the butler trying to get his hat back from some dogs, and it just goes on. It feels like a short. It's not terrible. It feels like a Looney Tunes short or a Tom and Jerry, like a classic cartoon short. It's like literally a 10-minute scene of him getting into hijinks, trying to stealthily pick like his hat off of the head of this dog, because he has to. He left it behind at the scene of the crime, and he's got to get his stuff back to take to remove the evidence. And it just kind of goes on for like a really long time. And then I was like, as soon as it finally faded to black, I was like, that was a really long scene. It's like it feels like a fifth of the movie is this one scene. Yeah, but I don't know. It's fine. It's like a cute little movie. It's okay. I can see. It's got a crazy racist cat. It's got an insanely racist Chinese Siamese cat. I couldn't believe it, dude. They go and they spend the night at O'Malley's at his pad. His little house that he hangs out in is this abandoned flat. And his jazz, this is pretty funny. This is very like slang of the time and being different to now. But he goes like, yeah, his jazz friends show up, and he goes, oh, well, I must warn you, Duchess. They're kind of swingers. And she goes, ooh, what is a swinger? I was like, hey, maybe not a Disney movie. But no, they mean jazz swingers. And, they're all these just very stereotypical kind of jazz characters, except one of them is a buck-toothed Siamese cat with squinty cat Chinese eyes. And he has a little piano solo. And he starts playing the piano with the chopsticks, and my fucking jaw drops. I'm like, no way. And then he goes, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Chong Chong Hua, Ching Chong Bao. I was like, dude, no. I'm a Chinese cat. We're almost hitting Norbit levels. We're not quite there. I was like, whoa. And I was like, I thought it was going to be like, Kat was getting the movie ready, and I like came back from the kitchen. I was getting a drink, and she's like, yeah, this is the one with the racist Chinese cats. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. And then I was like, wait, I don't remember this. I thought it was the we are Siamese of your praise. She goes, no, that's what is that? What movie is that from? Lady and the Tramp. Yeah, which I think I've seen. She goes, oh no, there was a how did they have two different racist Chinese cats? What were they on? What a crazy what the fuck, Walt Disney? Yeah, I don't know, man. It's a fine movie. Your kids might like it. And then afterwards we watched Robin Hood, which I had never seen before. I was like, have I seen Robin Hood? I vaguely no, I haven't. I'd never seen it before. And you know what? I really enjoyed it. I actually thought it was a really entertaining film. It's just a really solid, well done adaptation of the classic Robin Hood story. It's decently, funny and charming. The performances are really good. I like all the characters. Lots of fun sequences of just Robin Hood stuff happening. Good job. It's a good one. I don't know how much I have to say about it besides talking about... So, the one thing I kind of knew about this movie was that apparently the Robin Hood fox was a lot of people's furry awakening. And I can't relate. I cannot relate to that. I just find that kind of amusing. Yeah, that's like the only thing that I legitimately have ever heard people talk about this film, which is weird because I think it's actually got a lot of fun stuff in it. Yeah, I don't know. It just feels like a really charming, honestly, pretty timeless film. I think it obviously helps that it's adapting a pretty timeless legend. You know what it reminds me of? Speaking of, earlier we had a Lozy mentioned Chell from Road to El Dorado. And now we have this Robin Hood furry, why is the fox so hot kind of character. We were looking at Reddit while I was at her place, and I came across a thread of vicious scenes of vicious bullying in media. And the example, weirdly vicious, uncomfortably so. And the example they gave was from the 2014 Peabody and Sherman movie, which I've never seen. I mean, I know the originals, but I've never seen the movie. And it's this scene. Okay. It's the scene where Sherman, whose dad is a dog, that's kind of like the joke, is he gets adopted by a dog as opposed to the other way around. His dad is a dog, Mr. Peabody. He's at lunch, and this bitchy blonde girl walks up to him in her Catholic schoolgirl uniform. And she's like, this is such a fucking crazy scene. She walks up to him and she goes oh, hey, Sherman. That's a terrible little girl voice. She goes, hey, Sherman, aren't you... Oh, wow, what you got there? And he's like, oh, I got my lunch with me. I got a tuna sandwich. And she's like, oh, wow, I'm surprised you aren't eating kibble. And he's like, why would I be eating kibble? And there's this shot from a low angle of her, leaning towards him and going, because you're a dog. And she just starts ripping into him, calling him like a dog and mocking him. And it's in this way, she throws his sandwich in the middle of the floor and he starts, and she's like, go get it, puppy boy, arf, arf. Why don't you get your fucking sandwich? Why don't you bark for me, bitch? I was like, what the fuck? And she he's got this dog whistle in his pocket, and he's like, give it back. And she puts him in a headlock, and she's like, give it back when you get on your fucking knees and beg for it, puppy boy. Arf, arf. I was like, what the fuck? Fucking get on your knees and jerk off for being bark, you little puppy slut bitch. I was like, what the she doesn't say that. I was like, what? This scene fucked up a lot of kids. This scene was responsible for a lot of... This is like the Lion King scene where Nala gives him those bedroom eyes. This is the equivalent of that for like a lot of children. And I looked at the comments. Dude, I read these comments for like 5 minutes straight. I couldn't believe it. At least a third of them were about like... Were people saying something to the effect of, this scene changed me. Or, I watched this scene a lot as a kid. Or I thought about this scene, or something like that. And I was like, oh my god. Dude, someone put their fucking, like, their fucking fetish into this children's movie. And now there's a whole generation of children. Dude, the views on the clip on YouTube alone are at like 6 million. I want you to understand that. The effects... The consequences of Peabody and Sherman, the wide, it has the reach, the decimation is equivalent to the Holocaust, or at least comparable. 6 million femdom puppy fetishes. Peabody and Sherman was like the Holocaust, except if the Nazis were freaks on the internet, and the Jewish people were children. I'm doubling down on the analogy, okay? Fucking Peabody and Sherman, more like Peabody and Peabody and Der Fuhrer. Fuck, whatever. That shit was crazy. And you know what's funny? Is I look back... I look back on like a lot of stuff that I watched as a kid, and I'm like, how did I not like get a fetish from this? Because I never really did. It's like, I don't know why it just completely went over my head. And I was never able to relate to all those people who were like, oh, wow, yeah, I totally see where I was into this from because I watched this, like, cartoon with this thing. I was like, I never... Even Kat said that, like, when she was a kid, like, way before she realized she was trans, she would, like, watch Disney princess movies and be like, wow, I wish I could look like that. I never had anything on the level of that. That means I'm better than all of you. I guess I thought like some characters were cute, you know, or like attractive in a sort of like indescribable way where you like you don't really know what sexuality is yet, you know, like Raven from Teen Titans kind of thing. Why is she not wearing any pants? Why they didn't give her any pants? But yeah, I like can't remember anything as a kid that was equivalent to that for me. I really can't. And to restate, that's why I'm better than you. Do I have anything else I want to talk about? Not particularly. Dude, I'm at the fucking... I had to look up, so the We Are Siamese, the Siamese cat song. I'm on the Disney wiki for that, just because I had to check what film it was from, right? A second ago. And I looked down at the comments. You know what the first comment is? From 2023. As recent as 2023. Was this a big-lipped alligator moment? Who the fuck do you think you are, walking around in the year of our Lord 2023, making a deep-cut nostalgia critic reference like that? What is going on? It's disappointing the song isn't in the live-action remake. Yeah, disappointing, I guess. Well, in any event. Oh my god, someone is actually in these comments saying, like, how is it racist? Someone says, this song is pretty racist. And someone says, how? The third reply, stereotypes are not in and of themselves racist. Oh, you know a white person wrote that. I think the world suffers a lot more from sanctimonious, hypocritical, butthurt, cancel culture SJWs than it does from harmless stereotyping. People of Western culture have grown pampered, weak, entitled, and utterly pathetic. We deserve what we are about to experience. The least tolerant culture always wins in the end. Holy shit, we're getting, is this Theo Beale's alternate account? Dude, how are we in the fucking comments section of the Disney wiki and we have someone saying the least tolerant culture always wins in the end? What the fuck? What the hell? You know, like the Nazis. Yeah, they won in the end. Literally zero historical backing to that statement at all. And what do you mean in the end? What is that supposed to mean? Nah, dude, all the Roman Empire fell because they were too diverse. It wasn't because the empire got way too big and impossible to manage, and just kind of eventually got crept in by neighboring, like hostile, neighbor forces. That wasn't a factor at all. It was because there was too many different races in there. They got too woke. It's just like this fucking, this is such an unrelated rant. Yeah, you see all these like little, oh my, I hate this fucking talking point. Cause it's like this idea that diversity is like this evil spirit that just like, well, how specifically does it make a culture fall apart or something? It just does. Like, when did that happen? You're seeing it right now. Okay, cool. No, good on you. Yeah, all right. It's such a lazy cop-out answer that's just there to like, it isn't, it's barely fucking actionable. It just exists to be like, to justify people's fear of things that they aren't familiar with, and it's just kind of like a pussy ass worldview. Fuck that guy. Anyway, remember, how is the song racist? You know what's really funny to me? So I've gotten a couple comments on my Stephen Waite video where, okay, so like one of the points that I made in that video was I drew a comparison between Caleb from Blood and Duke Nukem and Lo Wang from Shadow Warrior. And the point that I was making was basically that Duke and Lo Wang are like kind of like loving parodies, but like they're farces and you're not supposed to take them very seriously. And you contrast that to Caleb, who is a character who has comedic elements to him, but it's more that the character himself has a sense of humor, like a morbid sense of humor, but he's not like a parody character. He's played straight and he has like real intended depth to him. And now it's just like a build-up point to talking about his character and the way that Stephen Waite kind of captures that and he makes it so like electric in his performance. But during that, just as kind of like shorthand and just to, I don't know, to convey that in a more interesting way, there's like literally like a 5-second bit where I say that, like, you know, Lo Wang is yeah, and then I just play a clip of him going, like, shooting the nuke and go, oh, this is just like Nagasaki. And there's like text on screen that says, he's played by a white guy. The voice actor is white. Just be like, if you asked me, excuse me, I would consider Shadow Warrior as a kind of like, ultimately, like, it's not hurting anyone anymore. It's a kind of harmless racism that's more just done so out of like, I don't know, man. It was like, if you'd asked any of them, I'm sure they would just say like, I don't know, dude, it was the 90s. Like, we didn't know. It's like, it's just ignorance. Not like ill intention. Like, it was all done with like an appreciation for the things that it was parodying. It just didn't do it in a way that was very tasteful. But like, I like Shadow Warrior. I just think it's got parts of it that are like distasteful, but I don't get upset over it. It's fine. I can acknowledge that and not like, I don't know, not be like fucking self-flagellating over it. But I've gotten like, not that many, but enough comments that like, enough comments to the effect of like, what, dude, how is it racist? Dude, I don't get, like, people who don't even, like, understand. And I'm like, I think I just said to one guy, like, dude, I don't know how to explain to you how awkward it is to hear a white guy putting on a fake Chinese accent and saying, oh, this is just like a Nagasaki, ooh, samurai. And it's like, that's not even the right, it's not even the right culture. You know who I'm sure it's not funny to? Chinese people who fucking hate Japanese people. Actually, maybe they would find that funny. Because it's about the atom bomb. Maybe the Japanese wouldn't appreciate it. It's just like with some people, it's like there's something that's so clearly like, this is not in good taste. You don't have to be mad over it. The world isn't going to end because there's a fucking insane Siamese cat song where he goes, Hong Kong, Shanghai, chicken fried rice. Like, it's okay. You could just acknowledge, like, wow, yeah, that is fucking weird. Like, it's a little strange. With, like, big buck teeth. And it's specifically what's so funny is people get really defensive about it. It's like, dude, I'm not saying it should be wiped from the earth. I just think maybe we wouldn't like if it was me doing it, I wouldn't have depicted them like that. I wouldn't have depicted the Chinese people like that. You know, like I wouldn't have. Unless it was like specifically a joke about like racist stereotypes, right? But just doing that earnestly is like, yeah, this is just like the Chinese cat. Like, that shit is like, honestly, I find it funnier than I find it offensive. Like, why would I find it offensive? I'm not even Chinese. It's just funny to me. Leave it to the Chinese. You know, that's their business to get offended at the Siamese cat song. Well, that was a weird tangent. That was that was The Hobbit, an unexpected tangent. Someone edit an unexpected journey, but just call it like the Hobbit Part 1, an unexpected journey. Maybe I should do it, but it's the Cellarcast Part X, an unexpected tangent. Well, I'm gonna go make food. And like, I don't know, wait for this thing to render and then try to finish this damn video. I look forward to it. Anyway, see you guys. Oh yeah, right. Leave if you have a question, leave it down in the comments below, but phrase it in the form of a question because I'm not just gonna read your thoughts out loud. Patreon, blah, yada yada. Bye.